I just want to play one of the people that has been on mainstream television lately. You've got John Bolton on NPR. You've got Bush and Blair, Tony Blair, talking about how they would have done things differently.
If it were me, I think I would have stayed in another 20 years. I can't do a posh British accent.
No, you really can't. It's not. You're
so
just
I
going to do
only
a chimney sweep.
I'm a chimney sweep. But that's what Tony Blair sounds like.
But here you have Nikki Haley, who's using this, and I believe the media is allowing the right to use this moment to score lots of points against Biden.
Someone you know well, former Secretary of State in the Trump administration, Mike Pompeo, stood alongside one of the Taliban founders and helped negotiate this deal in which President Trump signed an agreement to have United States forces out earlier this year. Did that set in motion what we're seeing now?
You know, I think everybody's wanting to go back and talk about Trump. The truth is, under 4 years of Trump, Afghanistan was safe. We made sure that we kept terrorism at bay and that we came from a strength of position. What's happened in 7 months of Biden is we've completely surrendered and we've humiliated ourselves in the eyes of the world.
So it's interesting, right? Because you have ostensibly the MAGA crowd, which is anti-interventionist, which is America first in the most xenophobic and nationalist way, dropping that line when it comes to supporting, you know, these hits against Biden, when in fact, Biden and Trump are actually allied on this topic, you know, in terms of pulling out of Afghanistan. Now we're seeing the rise of suddenly everyone's a neocon.
Yeah,
again.
the neocons are back. Yeah.
Max, what are your thoughts on whether this politically is going to hurt Biden in the long run, or do you think that everyone's going to move on that realignment?
Sure, it's going to hurt Biden because the right wing, the intersection of this in U.S. politics, you start to get into the framing in U.S. politics, which has little to do with the reality of what's happened in Afghanistan.
Yeah,
the framing in U.S. politics. There's a great quote from Lyndon Johnson in 1965, before he escalated the war, where he's talking to Richard Russell, the senator from Georgia, where he says, "We're not going to win this war, but I'll be roasted if I don't keep the communists at bay." They knew they were going to lose in 1965.
Jeez.
This is Vietnam. 2 million Vietnamese were killed, 50,000 Americans, a country wrecked, and they knew in 1965 they were going to lose. So the intersection with U.S. politics in MAGA land and in most of the rest of the country is, we're still the greatest country in the world. And if something goes wrong, it's not our fault. Or it went wrong, but we were well-intentioned. And the other people are to blame. So the right wing's going to tap into that no matter what happened in Afghanistan.
Sure.
And that section of people is going to be against the Democrats because they regard the it gets into another, it gets into a related topic, but it's not strictly only about Afghanistan. It's about the other. The Democrats are in the MAGA land. The Democrats are fronting for the other, the dark-skinned people who are becoming too many and taking over the country. That's what's going on that side of the fence.
Yeah.
And then on the side of the fence of people who are against the Trumpists, there's a wide diversity of views. The progressives, the left, the people who watch this and listen to this podcast are part of the progressive left, the social justice movements. But there's plenty of other people who are against Trump, too, for various reasons. Some of them are morally outraged by the racism. Some of them believe in U.S. democracy of the way, the way it's been practiced and thinks Trump is a threat to that, all kinds of different diverse reasons. But that section of the population is vulnerable to this, has not given up the idea of we're number one.
Yes.
They just don't, large sections of that don't see it in the same crude and racist way that the Trump people see it. And they're vulnerable to this because people, I mean, the education system in the United, how many people know anything about Afghanistan? I mean, here we fought the people who know the most are some of the people who served over there. And there's some interesting stories about the conflicted feelings of the veterans who were over there and the small number of other Americans who've ever been to Afghanistan, and a handful, experts and people who have thought about it for one reason or another. So sure, I mean, and the right is going to take an effort, is going to take anything that occurs, because at this point, the MAGA faction, the Jim Crow faction, I don't even think it's fair to call them the Republican Party. The media is still looking at things that U.S. politics is Republicans and Democrats. But U.S. politics, that's only one dimension of it. U.S. politics right now is really the Jim Crow faction versus the majority that believes in some kind of equality or multiracial society on some kind of close to a democratic basis. That's the actual divide in U.S. politics. It overlaps with partisan politics, but it's not essentially Democratic versus Republican. We have the heirs to the Confederacy in a new guise, wanting to take the country back to Jim Crow. They're anti-immigrant, they're anti-people of color, anti-Black. It goes a whole bunch of anti-LGBTQ and sexist stuff goes with that. Anti-Semitism is prominent in some parts of that movement. That's the essential divide in U.S. politics. And then on the side that's against that, there's all kinds of different forces. And you see it in the media. The information systems, and you've talked about this on your show many times. You have a whole media coverage, on this show. The right-wing media is talking points. You said this somewhere earlier in this show. There are just talking points, and it's within hours. Fox News, OAN, Newsmax, they're all talking the same talking point, whatever it is, and they just take one thing and the next. On the anti-Trump side, it's not parallel. There's differences of opinion. So CNN, MSNBC, the New York Times, they'll run op-eds that go in both. They'll run John Bolton, but they'll also run one from someone from About Face, Vets Against the War.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, I mean,
on this side, it gets very, very complicated in terms of keeping that front together against the Trumpists and still fighting within that front over what the hell is really going on here and what the hell just happened in Afghanistan and what happened in Afghanistan for the last 40 years.
What's going on, Frantifa? If you haven't already, subscribe to this channel right now. Hit that button. And also, you can become a patron and support the show every single week. Get access to bonus episodes and exclusive merchandise. Patreon.com/Bitchuation Room. Do it.